Auburn still has the old thing, a handshake's all you need kind of feel town. That is one of the things that I consistently hear over and over. Auburn is different. And it's always in that positive light of, man, it just feels like home.
I'm Vicki Grodner, and I'm the college real estate coach. I'm with my friend and fellow realtor, Daniel Blessing, today. So far, most of our content with this podcast has been related to our experiences in Tuscaloosa. And while it's still relevant to other college towns, we thought it would be important and helpful to speak with realtors in other college real estate markets. So Daniel is located in the Auburn, Opelika, Alabama office of Keller Williams, so our cross-state rivals for the University of Alabama, but War Eagle, right, Daniel?
War Eagle.
And so we're happy to have you today. I'd love for you to start by telling folks how you got into real estate and specifically how you got into selling real estate to parents and others associated with Auburn.
Absolutely. So I grew up doing remodeling. Our family would buy properties for rentals, that sort of thing. So I grew up doing the electrical, the plumbing, the sheetrock, the physical labor side of things.
Wow,
and
impressive.
So did that up through high school and realized I loved it. I loved real estate. I got to see what the potential looked like as my parents built it. And so around the time I would get
was that in Auburn or was that somewhere else?
That was in Auburn.
Okay, so
yes.
You grew up in Auburn. You're an Auburn kid. Gotcha.
Auburn's home. We love Auburn. We're a little biased, but Tuscaloosa's okay. You got some things over there.
Yeah. We'll give it to you. Okay, go ahead.
So we, I guess it was around sophomore, junior year of high school, decided, hey, go actually get your real estate license, because my dad didn't have a license as an agent. He was just going and buying properties as a regular investor.
Right.
And so originally the goal was more get your license for more investing purposes.
Okay.
And then what actually changed that was I went and interviewed with, I think it was 4 different brokers in town. You would recognize all the names, big brokerages, and was basically told, real estate is super hard. Auburn's, kind of a tight-knit community. If you want to bring your license here, you can, but, don't really expect too much. And so I'm like, it didn't exactly encourage me.
Yeah,
and
right. Way to motivate you.
I was going to say, way to pump up the young kid who wants to do something. And so I was actually at my church and had a prayer request. I said, hey, looking to join a real estate office here locally if anybody knows something. And a guy who I'd never met pulls me aside afterwards. He's like, man, you got to meet my broker. I work at Keller Williams. He'd be fantastic for you. And so, of course, he sets it up for me. I go over and sit down with him. And all the other meetings were very just straight to the point, very, robotic kind of things. And this guy was just totally different. I mean, warm, friendly, wanted to know me, wanted to know my family story, because he actually hadn't been in Auburn that long. So I actually knew more about Auburn than he did. He knew more real estate, obviously, but lived in Auburn longer.
Yes.
And he actually got to know me as a person. And I say that's why I chose Keller Williams, is the people.
Sure. Did he ask you why you guys throw toilet paper in the trees at Toomer's Corner if he was new to the area?
I cannot justify the toilet paper in the trees. I really can't.
Every college has unique traditions, right?
It does. We've got some unique names for Auburn. But anyways, that's kind of how I got into Keller Williams. And then how I got into kind of the condo student market is very simply, I got my license when I was a sophomore in college. So guess where I was? I was already on campus.
Right.
I was 2 blocks from the football stadium just for classes. And so out of necessity, I realized, hey, I don't have time to be driving 45 minutes away from here to show a home out in the country. I've got 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock to go show condos. And so began to kind of target those sort of folks, did some open houses at different ones that were nearby, was blessed to have an opportunity with a new construction neighborhood my broker let me in on. And so that was about a mile from campus. So I got to work that as well. And I found I just loved the condo market, and I loved the buyers. A lot of them were AU grads. They loved Auburn just like I did, had a different perspective, but really enjoyed that. And I was very relatable to them because I could honestly tell them, hey, like I'm here. Like I know where the students want to be. I know exactly where you want to be. I know the guys that are there, the girls that are here. And so that sort of firsthand knowledge, well, I think some people would look at that and go, man, you were young. How could you pull, why would people trust a student? I kind of turned around as a positive of, hey, look, I'm one of you. Like 100%. When your son comes here, I am him. And that really clicked with a lot of folks.
That's fantastic. So how long have you been in real estate then?
December of 2019. So right before COVID.
Okay, okay. Well, that was a good time to get in, as we know.
Mhm.
So, so you talked about condos. So tell us a little bit about the makeup of the Auburn market. Are most of your buyers going to be buying condos? Do you have single family homes that are near campus? Do most people want to be near campus? I mean, just kind of tell us, what your inventory looks like and what your typical buyer looks like.
Absolutely. So Auburn has always been a small town. We're growing, but at its core, it's a very small town. And so what we saw was between about 1998 and 2010 was when most of the construction was done near campus to actually build condo buildings versus just little cottage homes. Auburn used to be pretty much just cottage homes, right? Lovely's Village on the Plains. You could look across Auburn; it was flat. And so that's when most of our construction was done near campus. There's been a few exceptions since then. They've bulldozed some complexes, but as a rule, that's when most everything has been built. So what we've seen more is folks, they'll buy up that 2006 condo and they'll update it, right? Because HOAs are pretty good. So they'll keep up the outside, inside is remodeled, and that works for them.
Right.
As far as location, so Auburn is known for really our engineering school, which is right on campus, but then we're known for our vet school as well, which is off campus. And so we do a fair amount we have a couple complexes out by the vet school right across the street. So we do some business out there for the vet school. But I would say the majority of our clients are going to be what I would call on campus or walking distance to class, depending on, how you clarify it. But walking distance to class is where we do most of our business. But as you would expect, obviously big price reduction, you come off campus. So we'll have some folks that'll go off campus just for that reason. The other thing you mentioned, as far as homes versus condos, we really don't have a lot of options for homes. Okay. We just don't. Most of the cottage homes that are still there are investor owned. They've been investor owned for forever. No one's going to sell them. They'll sell them one day, but they're selling them to a developer to, bulldoze and build a complex on a corner, that sort of thing.
Right.
So, and the other thing, and we'll probably talk about this, but the zoning laws are very not favorable to homes. And so a lot of our folks that we work with are not interested in a home for those reasons.
You said are not favorable to homes?
As far as short-term rental laws, a lot of our folks, we really help them with the investment long-term. And Auburn, pretty much in residential, you cannot short-term anything less than 90 days. So that really deters a lot of our parents buying for children to go the home route.
Gotcha. I mean, here it's very popular, and I'm sure it's true at Auburn too, but I want you to validate, for people to buy homes strictly to come to football games. Now for us, basketball games. You guys have always been pretty good at basketball. But, so what we call game day properties, right? So whether it's a condo or a home, they buy it strictly for that purpose. I'm sure you have that kind of activity there as well?
Absolutely. And a lot of ours are actually tag teams. So we have a ton of folks that they went to Auburn, so their child's going to Auburn as well.
Right.
And what they're looking at doing is up until then, they've rented. They'll tell us, Daniel, we normally stay at the Auburn hotel, whichever one it is, and they're kind of getting tired of paying that rate every time they come. So what we'll do is we'll say, hey, you got your son coming. Does he want any roommates? He's got one friend. Okay, perfect. Why don't we grab a 3-bedroom for you? Let's put 2 beds on one side, 1 bed on the other. Your son and his friend are on the left side. When you come to town, you've got your own private suite on the right side. So we'll actually put those together for a lot of folks that, financially don't want to purchase 2 different places. We'll put them together depending on either the child has a roommate. A lot of times it'll be child doesn't have a roommate. We'll get a 2-bed, one for the child, one for the parent.
Right.
But we've seen a lot of success for that because then you're not just appealing to what the child needs. You're actually meeting a need of the parents as well. If you're meeting a parental need and a child need, that's pretty good.
For sure. And what about investors? Do you guys have a lot of investors coming into your market? I mean, we've been named one of the top markets, and so I assume that it's pretty popular in Auburn as well. But do you have a lot of people coming in that have no connection to the university but want to invest there?
So it's a good question. I would say the majority of folks that we work with do have a connection to Auburn.
Okay.
But we picked up a guy last year from Nashville. He lived in Nashville. He had a bunch of rental properties out in Phoenix, and he heard about Auburn. He said, hey, I want to start investing in Auburn. So we do have people like that are just totally, they researched online, they like what they're seeing, and they come and they want to start. But most of the folks, we have a ton of investors that have 1 to 5 rental properties in Auburn. It's very, very common to see that. And so I would say that is the majority of investors that we work with. It's small scale. I'm looking to grab one, run it for a couple of years, see it cash flow, add another one, that sort of thing. We work with some higher volume folks, but the majority of ours are that the 1 to 5 type property type range.
Okay, and talk to me about the student population and how that drives where people are coming from and then buying in Auburn, because I heard what you said, and primarily it's parents or folks that have some kind of connection to Auburn. But again, I know in our market we have a lot of people coming from out of state. Are there particular markets that you're seeing people coming into Auburn from and buying? Is Atlanta popular, for example, or what are those other big markets?
So the main places that we have folks coming from are Birmingham, Huntsville, Nashville, and Atlanta. Those are
Okay.
our top 4 cities. That's for a couple reasons. One, you have a ton of parents that went to Auburn and they moved there, and that's where they started their business. They've grown it up, and now their child is ready to come to Auburn. So part of it's just logistics. Part of it is that's where we're also targeting folks as well. So it's kind of it's self-fulfilling prophecy, right? A lot of people come from Birmingham, therefore we're working with Birmingham folks, therefore more folks come from there.
Right.
But that's the majority. We do work with a fair number from New England. We work with folks from New Jersey, Connecticut, that sort of thing, New York. But our sweet spot are those 4 cities that I mentioned.
Gotcha. So I ask you about unique traditions at Auburn, such as do you want to explain to people who may not know what I was talking about with toilet paper, what that's all about?
Yeah, so for some odd reason in Auburn, in our defense, I have to call out somebody else. West Virginia, when they win a football game, they burn couches. Okay,
Oh,
so we're not that
okay.
bad. We don't light couches on fire. What we do is we've got some oak trees. They're not the original oak trees; those were unfortunately had to be removed. But we've got new oak trees, and when Auburn wins a football game or really any major event happens, I mean, we've seen the rolling of tumors now for basketball all the time. We've even seen it for some other events. Students and really people just in general will gather on what we call Tumors Corner. There's a place called Tumors Drugs right there in downtown Auburn. They serve lemonade. It's really just regular lemonade, but people act like it's, because it's Tumors Drugs, it's considered the best lemonade ever. And people will literally just take rolls of toilet paper and they will throw them up in the trees. And if you Google, Tumors Corner, you will see photos of just streams of toilet paper. All you see is white. You can barely see the green of the trees. From that. So why do we do that? I really can't justify it too much. But if you're there, it doesn't seem weird at all. It just seems like this is just what you do. If you're not from here, I can understand these people are a little bit different in Auburn.
Yeah, usually like having a tree teepee is not a good thing, right? In most places. So yeah, it is a unique tradition for sure. We also talked when you and I talked last time about housing, and obviously we've talked about that a bit here, but I asked you a question because I had heard that a lot of folks lived in trailers in Auburn, and that's not being disparaging, but that's actually a thing, right, for students. So why don't you talk to folks about that too, because I think that this is certainly to educate people not just on buying real estate in markets, but also, just the makeup of a community, and I think that's interesting. So
Absolutely. So like I mentioned, Auburn was originally a small town. And it's still a small town compared to other SEC universities. We think it's bigger now because, we've seen the growth. But what Auburn has, I mentioned the vet school earlier. So basically, if you were just looking at a map, if you just Googled Auburn, Alabama, what you'd see is if you go west of Auburn, about 10 minutes out, you will hit the vet school. And basically, there's 2 main roads that head west in Auburn. And between those 2 roads we have a number of mobile home trailer parks.
okay.
And typically they'll run, you rent a lot for $400 or $500, and then you can buy the actual mobile home that sits on there. We'll see mobile homes, $60,000 to $100,000, that sort of range for
Sure.
a mobile home out there. And what we have seen is there's a lot of folks where it's, to put it in a way, it's basically folks that don't want the city type feel. They grew up in a more rural setting,
Okay.
and they don't like the idea of living in a condo on the 4th floor with an elevator. They want their space. And so we'll see a lot of those folks go out towards that way because, again, there's nothing like the areas are good. I get great feedback from the folks that live out there. It's a great option. It's less expensive, obviously, than buying a condo. So there's pros for it, right? And a lot of times we will see it where a parent did it already. And I'll be talking with them on the phone. And they would say, well, yeah, when I was there, I lived out at Ridgeway. I think he'd be fine out there. You know what I mean? So there's that connection. Normally, we don't see folks go out there who don't have a connection to Auburn. In other words, if you're
Right.
moving from, Lansing, Michigan, you're trying to find a place in Auburn,
Right.
you're not going to buy there.
Right.
It's the folks that know Auburn already. They know the area.
Right.
and they're comfortable with it because they know some of the stereotypes that may be applicable in other places, it's not really applicable here. It's really a good community out there. And
Sure.
so it gives them a great opportunity to get something less expensive while also, I mean, your 10-minute drive to campus, that's not that far, right?
Right.
So you kind of get the best of both worlds with that. And then we've also got a number, and it kind of helps the area. We have a number of RV parks out there as well, where for game days, people come in, park their RV, get all the hookups. And then they've also got, on Friday nights before the game, they have a big bonfire. It's a big event. People come from all over town to come out there. So the feel of that part of Auburn is really, really solid. It's kind of got a game day type feel to it for a lot of people. And so we've seen a number of folks. We've had, a good handful already this year that we were going back and forth condos or mobile homes. They've chosen the mobile home and they're loving it so far.
That's great. That's great. I'm assuming that means the mobile home parks are well maintained and that sort of thing then as well. So
Correct for the most. I mean, I always tell people it's just like buying real estate anyway. There's exceptions to the rules, but
right.
overall,
Right.
absolutely.
Do investors ever buy mobile homes out there and then rent them to folks? I mean, is that an investment strategy in Auburn at all?
A little bit, but not most folks.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
not a typical investment that we see.
Right.
Now we do see occasionally a mobile home park sell, right? We do see that happen. Actually had a friend, the guy that I mentioned that got me to Keller Williams,
Yes.
he recently bought a mobile home park and then actually was able to hold it for a few years and flip it, right? So we will see people buy the parks. As a rule, we don't see a lot of folks buying individual mobile homes and turning around and renting them. The numbers just don't work very well when you factor in the lot rent every month.
Sure.
Not as good a cash flow as you would hope for.
Sure. Okay, so you talked about, just because we were just on this topic, but mobile homes being 60 to 100. Talk to me about what those condos range, what the range is there. So somebody's watching this in Lansing, Michigan and says, hey, I think I want to invest in Auburn. What would they expect to pay for something that was close to campus?
Yeah, so I would say our range, if we were looking to be what I would call walking distance to campus, and again, I say that loosely, you got to be willing to walk, right? But walking distance, about the lowest end we'll have is mid 200s.
Okay.
That's kind of entry level. We can get you something for 250, 260, somewhere in there that is walking distance. May not be necessarily updated, may need some work, that sort of thing, but we can get you in there.
Sure.
I would say the majority of places that we're going to find are going to be in that like 3 to 5 range. That's
Sure.
pretty typical. If you've ever looked at Auburn, names like West Glen, West Magnolia, you're looking at 3 to 5 range typically. And then once you get above the 500 range, you're typically not looking at student places. You're looking at more game days for families where, we had one recently, actually, I think I mentioned to you before, she moved from Tuscaloosa, had a child graduate
Yes.
from Alabama, had a child come into Auburn. So she sold the place in Tuscaloosa, came here. And so the way she did it was she bought it more for a place for her. Could a child live in there while they're in school? Absolutely. But it's, it's more than a typical student would need, basically. So we see that. And then I mentioned the vet school. You can go out by the vet school and get something directly across the street for, 185, 200,000 as well.
Wow.
So that works for a lot of folks that are vet students. It doesn't make sense for them to buy on campus, right? Why would you pay more money to be farther away from where you're going to go to school?
Oh, of course.
Right?
That's
so
right.
for them, it works out perfectly. So I would say for the typical family, I would say our average is right around 300,000.
Okay.
Right? For us personally. But I would say as a general rule of thumb, mid 200s is kind of entry level for on campus. Very high 100s would be for off campus.
Okay. And is that going to be typically for a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, that sort of thing?
It'll be a 2-bedroom.
A 2-bedroom.
Once we go to a 3-bedroom, we're not going to find something in the 200s typically at that point. Always, there's exceptions to the rule, right? There's some places that need a ton of work, but general rule of thumb, we're not finding a 3-bedroom typically at 250, 225, something like that.
Right, right. So what else should people know about Auburn? If they have never been there before, you've told us it still feels like a small town, although the college has grown. You've told us some other things about some of your fun traditions, but what else should people know? What else would be helpful if I want to be an investor, or even if my students thinking about maybe Auburn as a college? What would be either fun or relevant for people to be aware of?
Yeah, I would say the main thing about Auburn as a town is the feel. And I know that's kind of a little bit like, you can't that's not numbers, that's not nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
But the feel, we have so many people that visit Auburn and say, I loved the feel. That's why my child is here. They visited, ABC schools. Auburn felt differently. A lot of folks compare Auburn to Clemson. If people listening to this have ever been to Clemson, very similar, still has that small town feel that you just don't get in a lot of places where, in some cases we have the university is also the capital of the state, right?
Right.
And so the university is simply, and for those towns, it's just part of it. It's just a part of, like, hey, there's all this town, and oh, here's a university over here.
Right.
In Auburn, the entire town is built on the university. If you're going to the grocery store and for some crazy reason you're not watching the football game and you're trying to shop, they've got the game on the speakers in the Kroger. I mean,
Right.
that's the sort of commitment that the town has to the university, to the sports teams. And that is something that you just don't see in larger cities that you can still get in Auburn. That'd be the number one thing I'd say is the feel. And that goes right along with the people, right? Auburn still has the old thing, a handshake's all you need kind of feel town, right? It's still got the hardware store that everybody knows the guy who runs it, right? It's a hole in the wall, but he's got as much as Lowe's does somehow packed into a little box, right? Those sorts of things make Auburn special. And that is normally what differentiates when we're talking about families looking to move here. That's normally what sets us apart. Yes, we have a great vet school. Yes, we have a great business school, great engineering school, but there's other places you can go in the United States of America and have a good program in one of those. It's normally the feel of the town that when the parents come, the child visits, they leave campus going, I can see my son, my daughter spending 4 years here.
Right.
And that gives them the peace of mind. And you cannot, I always tell people, we can talk all day long about numbers. We can talk about beds and baths and location and floors and balconies. At the end of the day, it's about, do I feel good? Do I leave with a warm feeling going, I feel good about this? That's what the parents tell us. And, I'm first to say I haven't worked all the other markets, but speaking for our market, that is one of the things that I consistently hear over and over. Auburn is different. And it's always in that positive light of, man, it just feels like home here.
Well, and that's what we wanted to know. So, Daniel, thank you so much for sharing insights on Auburn and the market there. Please, follow Daniel on Facebook and Instagram. Just follow his social, The Blessing Team, right?
Correct.
Yes, The Blessing Team. And Daniel, thank you for being with us today on the College Real Estate Coach. I'm Vicki Grodner.
I appreciate it. It's an honor.